Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first Impact of the Year. Now, when you look at WWE and TNA, just to make sure the camera's straight, I now have a tripod. Yeah, baby, you can see a little bit of a difference in the video quality, mainly because it's much better to my face, because I got a tripod to finally do some decent work here. I'm going to be improving as much as possible with a new camera hopefully soon, and see if I can do a little bit more better on my intro, which you see scrolling across the screen. That will be hopefully in the works in the next couple of months. I gotta get the money for all this stuff. But I'll give it to you like this. When you see this Impact, comparing it to the WWE, when I see Royal Rumble compared to what's going to happen in Genesis, seeing this show, I'm way more interested than what's going to happen in Royal Rumble. And don't get me wrong, there's things I know in Royal Rumble that might be pretty good. But this, and it wasn't a great show. Let's be honest, this wasn't one of the best action-packed shows they've ever put on. But there was enough that made me more than enough interested in what's going to happen in Genesis in 2 weeks. We get the opening of the show. We get Kurt Angle basically going to say, you know what, I've got to do better this year. We get a Robert Roode coming out. And then we have the great rock star Spud, who makes it even more of an action-packed show, coming out and saying, you know what, you guys need to calm yourself, cool your jets. You're going to challenge one another in a steel cage at Genesis. All right, fine. But don't make a mess. This is Dixie Carter's time. So he makes a match. Robert Roode and Kurt Angle pick two guys and get in a ring together. Now, this is a thing I thought might eventually happen, but I thought it might happen as they would turn face. And this is Storm and Roode. Seeing the segment beforehand was actually very good. I enjoyed it. But it gives a lot of questions of how far they're going to push Storm as a heel. I'm not sure yet. He's not a betweener. He's just a face that's just pissed off. So I was hoping they would push him a little bit more to going towards being a heel. Now, he pretty much said to Roode, if you don't do this, I'm going to kick your ass and everybody else in the ring. So he had no choice but to be part of this. So Storm and Roode teaming up against... it wasn't a bad match. Angle was not mainly in the match, which I was alright with. This was really supposed to focus on Storm and supposed to focus on Gunner in the very beginning. That I understand. In the end, it was Roode and Storm who won it. The reason I'm botching is because of the end. It wasn't a bad ending. It wasn't. But I just feel the problem here is that Storm is not really being pushed as a heel. He just isn't. Because if he was heelish enough, even though he doesn't like Robert Roode, the people expected him to do the beer money. They expected that mess. But they didn't get it. And I think it might have been a nice hint. If they had done the hint, maybe people would have gotten a little more interested in the rest of the show. Because let's be honest, that crowd in that arena sucked. They were really hyped for this. And they didn't get that. I felt that the rest of the show didn't flow right because they didn't get what they wanted. So we're moving on to the next match, which I really... Look, I didn't want to see this match so much that I went to look at other stuff. I wanted to see Minecraft more than I wanted to see this match. And that was Madison Rayne and Gail Kim. The last match these two women were in, which was a tag team match, Madison Rayne won by a roll-up. What do we get? Eat Defeat and another type of roll-up. Not the same, but it was different. And Madison Rayne wins. Tappa only interfered once. Was I interested? Fuck no. Only thing I wanted was for this to go away. What does this mean? Madison Rayne is either going to have a match at Genesis or going to have the match within the next 2 weeks. The reason I'm botching my words and slurring my words because I'd rather be drinking right now than see this match. It is upsetting the shit out of me. They won't bring back anybody like Angelina Love. Hell, I wouldn't mind seeing Winter right now. They're not bringing up Mickie Jane. They're not bringing back Tara. They're not bringing in any new women. All those women they showed, they're not bringing them in. And we only get this. I'm sick of this. I was more interested in looking at the knockouts than I'm looking at the Divas. And the only thing I care about the Divas now is looking at Total Divas. Because I get to see Naomi. This is just sad. Another match that was very sad was the X Division match. You know, when you look at Chris Sabin, I always said he can be a transitional champion. There's no problem with him. He has enough charisma that he could get over that way. He's a much better face. I'm sorry, he may be a very dry face, but he's better. Being this type of heel is not interesting. He could be a heel that can kick ass, but they're not giving us that. I'd rather see him as a dry face than this type of heel dealing with Velvet Sky. I just don't see it here. Velvet never turned heel. Either she doesn't want to turn heel or the writers just could not pull the trigger on her. So when it came to this match and she interfered, what type of interference was that where Austin Aries barely looked like he was distracted at all? He just handed him the match. It wasn't a great match from the beginning to the middle, but the end, he just, yeah, all right, fine, I'll do this, I'll do the job. It was like Austin Aries really did not want to do this. He didn't want to give up the X Division title yet. There was no reason for him to give up the X Division title, and he basically said, fine, just pin me and get it over with. That's how it felt. It's like what I understand about what happened with Mr. Bob Backlund when he won the title, but then the next night he had to lose it to Diesel. There was no reason for him to lose it to Diesel. You could have had at least a couple of weeks to a month run, and he didn't even have that. Diesel gets it the next night, as far as I remember. This is kind of the same thing. He gets the X Division title, but it's like they could have allowed him to have it a little bit longer and make something out of this feud, and there's nothing here. Unless this is for Austin Aries to become a love interest to a, which makes no sense to make Velvet Sky like that. But it looks like that's the angle they're going for. It's like they want to turn Velvet Sky from being from Chris Sabin's girl to Austin Aries' girl, maybe as his manager. That would be the only thing that would make some sense here. But other than that, it just didn't make any sense. I didn't like it. It's like the Knockouts match. That is the two matches I really didn't like. Now, when it comes to the Samuel Shaw match with, oh, I love this. Samuel Shaw looks like one of those Silence of the Lamb type of characters who basically will eat you with a side of mince and a little bit of clover. That's the type of look he gives me. He wants to eat something up, and if it's not Christy Hemme, he wants to eat your brains. That made my eyes bug out. But when you see Samuel Shaw, I'm botching because this is epic. He comes out, Christy Hemme is escorted out of the ring. Oh man. Burns comes in, gets wiped out, and gets choked the fuck out. This didn't last very long, and it didn't need to. It was perfect. But I don't know how far they're willing to go with this sinister type of Samuel Shaw. And what they're going to be doing with Christy Hemme. She got a nice bone line in that jaw, baby. She's a good-looking woman. And I want to see how far they're going to go with her. I want to see how far they're going to go with him. Now, the match that was a little confusing is the Bully Ray with Joseph Park match. I mean, Joseph Park is supposed to start turning into Abyss. And they thought that instead of trying to reciprocate it, in other words, to try and finally end it here, where they could have, you use this as a plot device for Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson. I don't get this. it's not as a bad thing. Seeing where they're trying to take Bully Ray is incredibly dark. Trying to make him so evil and sadistic to try and make people forget about Aces and Eights. That's what it comes down to. They're trying to use Bully Ray to completely bury Aces and Eights with an incredibly sadistic attitude. Way more than Sam Shaw is showing right yet. But I just don't get it with this. You're using the Joseph Park, who needs to be turned into Abyss, getting sprayed in the face. First he gets hit in the nuts. Then he gets sprayed in the face with supposedly lighter fluid. And then Mr. Anderson gets sprayed in the face with lighter fluid. And there's no lighting of the lighter. He just fakes it and runs off. Instead of walks off, he runs. I just feel like this doesn't make any sense. They're very lost when it comes to Abyss. And they're very lost about when it comes to Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson. They are. Even if it's culminating into a match for both parties. In other words, Joseph Park finally gets to turn into Abyss at Genesis, like I said he might be turned into. And the ending of Bully Ray and Anderson at Genesis, it could have been done better than this. So I just don't feel like it was done well. Now EC3 versus the Hardy. No Hardy match. But a good Sting, really a good Sting promo with EC3. I felt it was very well done. And now we'll have a match at Genesis with EC3 and Sting. I said this was going to happen, and I'm hoping that, and I've said this before, if Sting does not put him over properly at a very signature pay-per-view, there was no point in doing this. Last week was okay, but it's not a signature pay-per-view for an EC3. If we don't get it, it makes no sense. Now, oh, that's pretty much, anything else? That's it. There wasn't that many matches this show. What made this entire show was the ending and the coronation of Magnus. Rockstar Spud sounded epic. I love Rockstar Spud. EC3 was okay, but he's not at the caliber of Rockstar Spud. When you got someone who's British in this type of position, it's actually really interesting. You get a type of mannerism that really can put someone over. And by the time they got Dixie out there, who was getting big heel heat, and this crowd has sucked throughout the entire night. I'm sorry, they did. But the crowd really picked up when it came to Dixie. They did. So by the time Magnus came out, and he sounded very good in both segments by himself, and when it came to AJ Styles, I was very impressed. Magnus sounds very, excuse me, he sounds very, very well groomed. He sounds very polished. And I'm so glad they finally did it. I agree with Slug Daddy that I am so glad finally a British-born champion for an American title. From what I understand from the Slug Daddy, it's been 100 years since anyone's ever won one. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am glad that he finally got it. So by the time the ending of the show, when Gunner came out and was ready to challenge him like Money in the Bank, he gets his ass handed to him. And then AJ comes out for the rescue and saves him. This is where the rest of the show basically fades away and the most essential thing for TNA comes up. In 2011, the WWE had a chance to do something that has not been done in an incredibly long time, or ever. You lose your title to somebody, they leave the company, and they publicize it. Unlike what happened with Ric Flair when he left WCW, and they didn't have a signature match with Hulk Hogan. In this case, when it came to John Cena and it came to, really, CM Punk, you did get that match. But it didn't mean anything because CM Punk didn't go off to another company and then do something with that belt. There is the difference. With Ric Flair, he left WCW and went to WWE and met their top guy but never challenged him in the match. By the time with John Cena and CM Punk, they did do that, but it really didn't mean anything because CM Punk didn't go to another company and then come back. In this respect, you get Magnus, who is now the newly crowned champion, dealing with the previous champion who left with the title. This is what WWE should have done. And now when it comes to the Royal Rumble, when we see the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion challenging the guy who is part of the combination of the two belts of the World and WWE Championship, this one actually has a lot more interest. I'm way more interested to see what's going to happen with Magnus and AJ Styles next week. I'm hoping this will culminate in Genesis. I'm hoping they will not do this next week. There will be some type of screwy ending that will not crown a champion. But there's a good chance there will be. But if it does happen in Genesis, that would be the best time. This would be the best time for TNA to make a mark compared to WWE. I'm giving this a B. Not for all the main stuff that really pissed me off, or some of the good stuff like Samuel Shaw was very, very good. I loved it. EC3 did very well when it came to dealing with Sting. This ending was the best thing of the entire show, and there wasn't that much there. This was the most important thing to me personally, because now I can see a real Undisputed Championship match. Even if TNA isn't one of the best companies, they don't have the best writing, they don't have the best lighting, they don't have the best people there, but you got two originals from that company challenging to see who's the best with two different titles that I actually want to see. So I hope you enjoyed the Zane's View. Subscribe and comment to my channel. I don't usually say that anymore, but I thought I'd say this because this is the new year. I'm going to try not to say subscribe much, because who wants to hear that all the time? I was very foolish in saying it. But I hope you enjoyed this review. Please give me a comment of how you feel about this, and you guys have a good day.